Commander Lydia Morse stood at the helm of the Ardent, her eyes scanning the planet Aeylos as it loomed in the viewport. The vibrant world shimmered with an alien beauty, its cities glowing softly beneath a pale lavender sky. This was supposed to be a historic moment for humanity, the first official diplomatic mission to the Arvidians, a species renowned for their wisdom and role as peacekeepers in their region of space. Yet, as Lydia watched the descent toward the capital, something gnawed at her. For weeks, her gut had whispered that this mission wasn't going to go as smoothly as Earth's leaders had hoped. The Arvidians, once eager to host humans, had grown distant in their communications. It wasn't like an advanced species known for their benevolence to suddenly shift toward silence. "Commander," Captain Malik said as he approached, his voice low. "We're cleared to land, but the Arvidians requested that only you and a small team come ashore." Strange. No formal reception, no media. Nothing like the protocols we've seen in other first contacts. Lydia nodded. She had noticed the same thing. Diplomacy with an unknown alien race was always tense, but this felt different, guarded, almost secretive. "Prepare a team," she ordered. "Keep it light and discreet. We don't want to give them any reason to think we're mistrusting them. But stay on high alert." As the Ardent settled onto the landing platform, Lydia led a small group onto the surface of Aeylos. The capital city, Tellura, stretched before them, immaculate, with towering structures bathed in the planet's soft light. Despite its beauty, the city seemed subdued. Few civilians walked the streets, and those who did moved quickly, their eyes avoiding the human delegation. An Arvidian envoy greeted them at the base of the platform. Tall and graceful, with smooth gray skin and large, dark eyes that gleamed with intelligence, the Arvidians resembled something out of humanity's ancient mythologies. Zektar, the lead ambassador, approached, his expression unreadable. "Commander Morse," Zektar said, his voice deep and measured. "Welcome to Aeylos. We hope your journey was peaceful." Lydia extended her hand in the traditional human greeting, and Zektar paused before reciprocating. His touch was cool. "Thank you, Ambassador. We're honored to be here. I look forward to learning from your people." Zektar nodded but did not smile. "We have much to discuss. Please follow me." As they walked through the city, Lydia couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The Arvidians had always been portrayed as an open and kind people, but their manner now seemed distant, almost reluctant. The streets, while clean and orderly, had an undercurrent of tension. She noticed several heavily armed guards positioned at key points. Was this normal, or were they expecting trouble? The tour Zektar gave was brief and superficial, focused mostly on architecture and technology. Lydia pressed for more: cultural exchanges, potential alliances, any signs of deeper diplomatic engagement, but Zektar deflected her questions with vague promises of future discussions. Then, as they neared the edge of the city, Lydia saw it. A large, fortified structure stood beyond the main road, guarded by more Arvidian soldiers than she had seen elsewhere. It was subtle, but the security was undeniable. When she asked Zektar about the building, his response was clipped. "It is not of concern to you." Lydia felt the prickle of suspicion crawl up her spine. There was something inside that building, something the Arvidians didn't want her to see. She exchanged a glance with Captain Malik, who gave her a barely perceptible nod. They would investigate. That night, under the cover of darkness, Malik led a small team to infiltrate the restricted area. With their advanced tech, hacking into the Arvidian security system wasn't difficult, but what they found inside was beyond anything they could have imagined. Through the security feeds, Lydia watched in horror as the images unfolded on her console. Rows of cells, each one holding a child. Not Arvidians. Human children. They looked malnourished, their faces hollow and eyes glazed over. Some sat staring blankly at the walls, while others huddled together for comfort. They wore strange medical devices, their skin marked with odd patterns and scars, evidence of experimentation. Lydia's mind raced. How had these children come to be here? Earth had no record of missing colonists in this sector, no reports of abductions. The implications were terrifying. Just then alarms blared. Malik's infiltration had been discovered. Lydia's heart pounded as Zektar appeared on the main feed, his dark eyes focused and unyielding. "Commander Morse," his voice echoed coldly. "What you have done tonight has endangered everything. You have no idea what forces you are meddling with." Lydia's blood ran cold as Zektar stared directly into the camera, his next words sending a chill through her spine. "You must leave now, or there will be consequences." Commander Lydia Morse sat stiffly in a cold, metallic chamber within the Arvidian Council building, her mind racing. Her team had been confined to quarters under heavy guard after their discovery of the human children. Zektar, the Arvidian ambassador, had summoned her alone for an urgent meeting. Lydia's fingers tapped against her leg as she considered her options. She needed answers and, more importantly, a way to get those children out. The door hissed open and Zektar entered, flanked by two high-ranking Arvidian officials. He met Lydia's eyes with a grim expression. "Commander Morse, I trust you understand the gravity of your actions. What your people did last night was not only illegal but reckless." Lydia's jaw clenched. "Illegal? We found human children locked up in your facility, subjected to medical experiments. You expect us to ignore that?" Zektar's expression darkened. "Those children are not prisoners. They are victims, rescued from the Delkirians, a brutal species known for their raids on colonies, including human ones. We intercepted them years ago, before your species even knew of our existence." Lydia frowned, her skepticism rising. "You rescued them? Then why are they still here? Why were they being experimented on?" Zektar sighed, pacing the room, clearly wrestling with how much to reveal. "You do not understand the complexity of this situation. Those children were altered by the Delkirians in ways we still do not fully comprehend. Genetic modifications. Neural enhancements. We've tried to reverse it, to help them regain some sense of normalcy, but they are not the same as they once were. Sending them back to Earth without understanding the full extent of these changes could destabilize your world." Lydia felt a surge of anger. "So what? Your solution is to keep them here indefinitely? To experiment on them in secret?" "We are not experimenting on them," Zektar replied sharply, his calm demeanor beginning to crack. "We are searching for a cure. Do you think we enjoy watching these children suffer? We have done what we could to protect them. The Delkirians' tampering has left scars that Earth may not be able to handle." Lydia wasn't convinced. "Why haven't you contacted Earth about this? We have the technology, the resources. We could have helped." Zektar's face hardened. "Because Earth would have reacted exactly as you are now, with fear, anger, and threats. We could not risk it. If humanity knew the truth, panic would spread, and war would not be far behind. The Delkirians are still out there, watching, waiting. If they learn that Earth knows of their work, it could trigger something far worse." Lydia was silent for a moment, weighing his words. She understood the logic, but it didn't sit right with her. These were human children. Her people deserved to know. But if Zektar was telling the truth, revealing their existence could lead to unimaginable consequences. Before she could respond, a message pinged on her wrist communicator. It was Captain Malik. "Commander, we've made contact with a group of Arvidians calling themselves the Truth Seekers. They have information about the Council's real plans. This is bigger than we thought. They're trying to cover everything up, and they're planning to erase all evidence, including the children." Lydia's heart skipped a beat. Zektar had said they were protecting the children, but the Truth Seekers' message suggested otherwise. Now she had to make a choice: trust Zektar and hope for a diplomatic solution, or align with the Truth Seekers and risk igniting a civil war on Aeylos. Zektar, sensing her hesitation, spoke quietly. "Lydia, this is not just about the children. It's about peace in the galaxy. Think carefully before you act." Lydia met his gaze, her decision weighing heavily on her shoulders. Lydia stood in the dimly lit room, facing three members of the Truth Seekers. Their leader, Calaris, an older Arvidian with deep-set eyes and silver markings across his skin, leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. "The Council has no intention of releasing the children, Commander. They fear what will happen if Earth discovers the truth. They believe your people will retaliate, and they may be right. But what's worse, they've begun plans to eliminate all evidence, including the children." Lydia's pulse quickened. She had suspected as much after Malik's message, but hearing it confirmed was another thing entirely. "Eliminate?" she asked, her voice tight. "You mean to kill them?" Calaris shook his head. "Not directly. They're planning a procedure to wipe their memories, remove any trace of their human origins. The children would be left as blank slates. No past, no identity." Lydia clenched her fists. These weren't just faceless victims. They were human, with families who had no idea their children were alive, even if altered. "Why?" she asked, her voice sharper than she intended. "Why would they do this?" "Fear," Calaris answered simply. "The Council has kept them hidden for years, terrified of what their existence represents. They're afraid of retaliation from Earth, but more than that, they're afraid of what those children might become. The Delkirians didn't just alter their genes. They enhanced their abilities, psychic potential, enhanced strength, even aggression. The Council sees them as a threat." Lydia felt the weight of the situation bearing down on her. Every instinct told her to act now, to break the children out and expose the Arvidian Council's deception. But the risks were astronomical. If Earth learned the truth about the children's enhancements, panic would spread. And worse, if the Delkirians discovered that Earth had knowledge of their experiments, it could spark a war the planet wasn't prepared to fight. What about Zektar? Lydia asked. He seems conflicted. Could he be an ally? Kalaris's expression darkened. Zektar is bound by the Council's decisions, even if he disagrees. He's been trying to balance protecting the children with keeping peace between our species, but his influence is waning. He can't stop what's coming. A cold weight settled in Lydia's chest. She had to make a choice. Trusting the Arvidian Council to do the right thing had led her nowhere, and now the children's lives, and perhaps more, were at stake. She couldn't wait for diplomacy to sort this out. As Lydia prepared to leave, Kalaris grabbed her arm, his grip firm. You must act quickly, Commander. We can help you, but once the Council initiates the memory erasure, there will be no turning back. Lydia nodded, her mind already turning to a plan. We'll need to get into the facility unnoticed and disable their systems. Can your people handle that? Kalaris smiled grimly. We've been preparing for this moment for a long time. We'll handle the sabotage. You focus on getting the children out. Later that night, Lydia stood before Zektar in the council chamber. His face was drawn, his eyes reflecting a weariness that hadn't been there before. You went to the Truth Seekers, didn't you? He asked, his voice low but sharp with accusation. Lydia didn't deny it. You've been lying to me from the start, Zektar. You said you were trying to help the children, but your council is planning to wipe their minds and erase their identities. Zektar's eyes flashed with a mixture of anger and frustration. Did you capture human children as prisoners? You are insane, he shot back, his voice breaking with emotion. We were saving them. From the Delkirians, from themselves. They are dangerous now, Commander. You don't understand what they've become. Lydia's voice hardened. Dangerous or not, they're still human. We don't erase people just because we're afraid of what they might do. We fight for them. Zektar's shoulders slumped as he stepped back. If you act now, there will be no turning back. A confrontation between us and your people is inevitable. Lydia's gaze didn't waver. Maybe. But those children are coming home, Zektar. One way or another. The corridors of the Arvidian facility echoed with the sharp click of Lydia's boots as she and her team advanced, moving swiftly and silently. Malik was at her side, his face set in grim determination. Behind them, Kalaris and the Truth Seekers were planting charges along the perimeter, ready to disrupt the power grid. They had one chance to free the children before the Council could execute their plan to wipe their memories. We're approaching the control room, Malik whispered, his voice tight over the comms. The Truth Seekers are in position. Lydia nodded, her mind racing. They had planned this down to the minute, but so much could still go wrong. She couldn't shake the image of the children's blank stares from her mind. The Council was willing to erase everything those kids had been through, but to her that was a fate worse than death. They reached the door to the control room, and Malik hacked the security panel with practiced ease. As the door slid open, Lydia stepped inside, her pulse quickening. The room was filled with Arvidian technicians, all focused on the system monitors tracking the children's locations. Lydia raised her weapon and the room fell silent. Nobody move, she ordered, her voice steady. Shut down the systems now. The technicians froze, but none of them moved to comply. Lydia took a step forward, her eyes locking onto the lead technician, a younger Arvidian whose hands hovered over the control board. You heard me, Lydia said, her voice hard. Shut it down. Before the technician could respond, the door behind her slid open, and Zektar entered, flanked by 2 armed guards. His expression was a mixture of sadness and resignation. Lydia, stop, he said, his voice firm but pleading. If you go through with this, you'll condemn us all. Lydia turned to face him, her grip tightening on her weapon. You lied to me, Zektar. You're planning to wipe their minds, to erase them like they never existed? Zektar's shoulders sagged, his eyes full of conflict. I didn't want this, he said softly. But the Council decided it was the only way. The children are dangerous, Lydia. They've been changed in ways we can't control. They could destroy your world, or ours. I don't believe that, Lydia shot back. And even if it's true, it's not your choice to make. They're human. They deserve the chance to live, to be helped, not erased. Zektar's gaze dropped to the floor, his expression one of deep sorrow. You don't know what you're unleashing. If they go back to Earth, the Delkirians will come for them. They see those children as their property, their experiments. We've been keeping them hidden to protect them, and to protect your world. Lydia's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. We'll deal with the Delcurians if we have to. But I'm not leaving those children behind. The lights in the facility flickered, then went dark. The power grid had been sabotaged as planned. The truth seekers had succeeded in disabling the facility's systems. Lydia felt a surge of hope. They were running out of time, but they were close. Zektar stepped forward, desperation in his voice. Please, Lydia, reconsider. This will lead to war. Lydia met his gaze, her decision made. Maybe. But the alternative is worse. With a nod to Malik, she signaled for the team to move. They surged through the control room, disabling the remaining Arvidian guards and unlocking the cells where the children were held. As the doors slid open, Lydia's breath caught in her throat. The children, pale, thin and wary, stared back at her, their eyes hollow but still holding the flicker of life. You're going home, Lydia said gently, her voice breaking. We're getting you out of here. As her team began escorting the children out, Lydia turned back to Zektar. His expression was unreadable, but he no longer tried to stop them. You've made your choice, he said quietly. I hope it was the right one. Lydia didn't respond. She didn't know if it was the right choice. But she knew one thing for sure. The children deserved a chance and she was willing to fight for it, no matter what came next. As the facility crumbled behind them, Lydia led the children toward the Ardent, bracing herself for whatever the future held.